welcome back to Noise Pollution.
Hi.
For anybody that's watched much of me knows that I am an open source Linux and open source in general advocate, but I do have my complaints, but we'll get to that. There is a new Linux distro that has arisen to some amount of popularity. Uh, I take it as Anduin. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
AnduinOS, but here's the thing about it. The sole maintainer of that Linux distribution turns out to be a Microsoft employee. I found that immensely interesting. The Microsoft engineer said that the project was mainly a personal project, resulting in his desire to create a comfortable Ubuntu based Linux distribution with minimal modifications outside the changed user interface. As a software engineer at Microsoft, Anduin uh, XUE. I don't know how you would pronounce that. Zui.
No,
Hmm.
I don't know either.
Says he's financially stable and sees no need to commercialize Anduin OS. In our coverage from in our coverage of the Anduin OS 1.3 released last week, one commenter pointed out that the distro is from China. For some, this will raise issues about Anduin. The creator addressed this in his blog post, saying that the source code is available to the public. For this reason, he told lacing the operating system with backdoors. Okay, let me make sure I'm getting this right. He told lacing the operating system with backdoors for the Chinese government would be irrational and easily exposed. Here's the thing, open source. If it's open source and, whether you personally check it or somebody audits it and you make sure everything matches up, as long as you're not connecting to a Chinese source, then you're safe. And okay, whoever checks the code must understand it and that it'll have no backdoors in it. Now that's a big ask, but usually open source projects do have a lot of eyes on them and get exposed quickly. For those worried about that the distribution may be abandoned, Anduin Zhu said that he intends to continue supporting it and may even maintain it full time if sponsorship or corporate cooperation emerges. In October, Microsoft plans to end mainstream support for Windows 10, and many computers will be left unable to upgrade to Windows 11. Given this fact, Linux stands as a good option to keep computers running, and if you want something that looks similar to Windows, then Anduin OS is worth checking out. They say this every every time Windows upgrades, and it's like, well, you can't upgrade your old stuff to this anymore. And they're like Linux, but that generally doesn't happen. I mean, in the US, I believe the number roughly stays at 4%. With that being said, they don't have a good way of tracking it. It could be way higher. It's likely way higher, but it's still not a majority. It's still it's above Apple computers at this point, but it's still not a majority. But okay, you have your concerns about backdoors and Chinese spyware and all such. Where your concerns should be is Linux and open source in general is being eaten away slowly, or maybe not so slowly, by identity politics and corporate buyout. There are so many corporations like Microsoft that is now like possibly even the majority of the Linux Foundation. They're on the board and they have the say so. So while I appreciate open source and Linux, I am deeply concerned of the takeover again by corporate and identity politics activist uh, developers. If you're an activist user, then you're just a user. But if you're an activist developer, we have a problem, especially if you're an activist developer and you're saying, we will not have anybody that's not like us. We don't want you using it. We don't want you in this. We don't want you to utter a word. That is a real issue and is a danger to us all, especially when these open source projects and software is being used by NASA. It's being used by Google, by Apple, by Microsoft. It's hosting all the servers. It's running many of the supercomputers. When you have activists developing it, yes, imagine the trouble that can bring.
Well, I have a question. Since there's so many activists in the Linux community now, and they're developing and developing these operating systems for Linux and stuff like that. What's to stop them from putting their own back doors in it? And then if they find that whoever's using their product is against whatever they're spouting, and
Well,
they
here's
make their computer a brick, basically.
anything's possible, but here's the way it will more likely go. Their code of conduct in general and per piece of software has been getting stricter and stricter and stricter, but primarily in the sense of identity politics. If you don't fully support them in every way, I mean, even if you're there and it's like, okay, I'll just go along and I'm not gonna say it. I'm just gonna be here and do my developer work and not say, hey, trans rights or whatever. They get kicked out. The creators of many of these projects have been kicked off of their own project. They've been forced out. So here's what I'm getting at. It is much more likely that this code of conduct will keep getting stricter and to the point to where they start putting rules outwardly going, you cannot use our software. If we have the right to force you to stop using our software if you align like this or use utter these words that you're not allowed because you have to be inclusive. What does software have to do with your gender and identity?
Nothing. So basically, they could turn into like social media kind of platforms where you can't say certain words and that kind of thing.
They have kicked out developers and banned them from coming to conferences because they found a picture on their social media where they were wearing a Trump hat. Yes, it's that insane.
That's
The
insane.
the Gnome project hired someone who self-professed as a shaman, and there was a bunch of other string of other nonsense on it too, right? They were just a butch-looking lesbian, but they advertise widely that a shaman is running the Gnome project, and of course, a different person's running it now, but the wokeism didn't die there. So yeah, okay, they're kicking people out over a hat they wear on social media, not to their job, not writing in the software. You take for example Lunduke. He reports on all this woke nonsense that's happening in software. His name is banned everywhere. Everywhere. His name, you will be kicked and banned if you say his name.
Oh,
Now, how long, just how far of a gap do you think it is between what they're doing and them going, you can't use our stuff if you say this, support this, think this way, wear this? How big of a gap is there left?
not a very big one at all. I mean, they're
So
just pushing people away.
I'm a big supporter of open source, and Linux, obviously. Uh, but they need to cut the rot out, and that rot is identity politics.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is that does not have any business in most things.
Yeah, you
You
look at it
know?
before this insanity started. Did you see people putting like no straight rules, and if you think this way, you can't be a part of it? Did you ever see
No.
any of that?
Mm-mm.
Absolutely not. It's
Mm-mm.
nowhere. It's nowhere in history, it's nowhere in the code, there's no records of it. But now that they are inclusive, they are rejecting 99% of everyone. And that's only just a little hop to, oh, now you can't use our stuff if you don't align with our views 100% and espouse it loudly to everyone as often as you can.
Well, I guess I just won't use it then.
Well, we'll see. I had that thought too, right? And I'm like, if it's this heavily infested, and it is, I'm not gonna use it. But guess what? Guess what Apple's doing? Guess what Microsoft and Google's doing? Guess what everybody's doing?
They're all doing the same thing.
Okay,
Well,
so any viewers out there, I want you to leave your thoughts on it. I found this to be an interesting story. I hope you do as well. Okay, till next time.